Efficient audit engagements? It can be done. A common question I hear from auditors is, how can I save time yet follow all the standards? If you miss anything, you're not being effective. This creates a business risk for your firm and brings your reputation into question. On the other hand, if you're doing too much work, you're not being efficient. You're wasting time in the file, and time is money. I'm Kirsten Albo from Ask KSA Consulting. With over 3 decades of public practice experience, I know the areas to save time and perform a quality audit. By the end of this video, you will have a handful of strategies to implement on engagements to make you an effective and efficient auditor. Materiality. Setting the right level of materiality is critical. Materiality is what drives the assessment of the risk of material misstatement and the responses to those risks. Set the materiality level too high, you might miss a material misstatement. Setting it too low means you're doing too much work. Here are factors to bear in mind when setting the level for your engagements. Overall materiality is based on the users of the financial statements. Select the right benchmark for those users. Normalize the benchmark for calculating overall materiality if necessary. Determine the threshold to be used. Unless there is a reason to be at the low end of the range, start with the top end. Remember the user's needs. Performance materiality is based on risk related to the client. Use your understanding of the client to determine the right level of performance materiality. Set your trivial amount or posting level at the right amount as well. Document preliminary materiality at the planning stage of the audit, and don't forget to recalculate final materiality at the completion stage. Preliminary and final analytics. Preliminary and final analytics are required procedures but valuable tools to save time when performed and used correctly. Preliminary analytics are one of the first risk assessment procedures performed. It's done at the beginning of the engagement, and what you are looking for is unusual or unexpected balances to plan your procedures. Final analytics at the completion stage is that stand back to ensure you've addressed everything. Here are strategies to use to be efficient. Think about who should perform these procedures. Often, it is more efficient if a more experienced staff performs the procedures. Perform the analytics at the right level. These procedures are performed at the financial statement line item. When performed at too detailed a level, it results in way too much work. Use the same format for both preliminary and final analytics. Develop a firm template to be used on all engagements. You can use anything from an Excel spreadsheet, caseware lead sheets, or financial statements. Document your comments on the working paper and immediately include in the file as evidence. These procedures are so helpful, and when performed in the right way, will help you save time and deliver a quality engagement. Use the team planning meeting. While the team planning meeting is a required procedure, it is a great way to kick things off. Use the agenda to discuss and document required items. The partner has information that if shared with the team, they are better able to set expectations, save time, and strengthen documentation. To ensure team planning meetings occur and are documented, do the following. Book the meeting as soon as the job is scheduled. Put the date in your calendar, invite required attendees. Build a template on matters to be discussed. Discuss significant events about your clients and determine the approach to obtain sufficient, appropriate evidence. Hold the fraud discussions. Specifically address financial statement misreporting and misappropriation of assets. Take notes during the meeting and attach them to the file immediately after. The key is to share information amongst the whole engagement team. When you better understand your client, you're more efficient at performing procedures. Link control environment to risk response. Spend time linking the components of internal control to the risk responses. Use your understanding of the client to drive efficiencies. Let me explain. If your client has a strong control environment, there may be an opportunity to increase thresholds as compared to a client with a weak control environment. Here are strategies to implement. Include the topic of components of internal control on the team planning meeting agenda. Discuss the overall control environment and conclude whether it is on the strong end or weak end of the spectrum. If the control environment is stronger, open up last year's file and reflect on thresholds used. Determine where the opportunity lies to increase testing thresholds. Document your results. Understanding your client's control environment and linking that knowledge to procedures performed will help you save time, even when not relying on controls. Audit approach. Your thought process might be, my client's too small, it's not worth it to rely on controls. And in certain cases, that may be true. However, a different perspective might be, even for smaller clients, relying on controls can be efficient, especially in the area of expenses and payroll. Using a controls approach is selective and can be used where it makes sense. This may be a significant change in your audit approach. Here are specific actions to take to adjust your mindset. Select a few clients to be used as a pilot project. 5 is often a good number. Hold a team brainstorming meeting about what controls are in place. Focus on specific sections. Determine where it makes sense to rely on controls. Develop a firm template for testing. Perform the controls testing and document the results. Talk to your client about the change in approach. They may need to keep certain documents as evidence. Debrief after the engagement. Determine what went well, what can be improved, and lessons learned. The more familiar you are with alternative audit approaches, the more comfort you have that you've obtained sufficient, appropriate evidence. And who knows, selecting the right audit procedures may mean no test of details at all. Think about that. Knowledge of the Canadian auditing standards. The auditing standards can seem daunting, but I promise you they are not. The more you understand the requirements, the more efficient you can be in your audit engagements. Knowing the standard makes it easier to complete checklists and forms. Here are practices to strengthen your knowledge. Create a link on your desktop to NOSHA. As CPAs, we all have access to the electronic version of the handbook. Become familiar with the CAS headings. Understand the clarity format and know the requirements are all in one place. Use the application material to further guide you. Access FRAS Canada on a regular basis to know when and what are upcoming standards changes. Invest in training for staff. The benefit of knowing the standards means you might be able to eliminate certain checklists from your audit engagement files. Just because a checklist is there doesn't mean you have to complete it. It is the standards that drive your audit. Just think how much time you may be able to save if you can eliminate a few checklists. Implementing these strategies will save you time on your engagements. These tips will also strengthen audit quality. That's a big win. If you like these pro tips, check out Ask KSA's PD course on auditing hot topics. Click the link to register.